Shabbat Shalom, family.
Shabbat Shalom.
Hey, family. We are blessed to be back for another week, family, to fellowship with you all, family.
Yes.
Hallelujah. Hallelujah. Sister Abiyah and I, we pray that you all had a blessed week, family. And
Absolutely.
we are excited for this lesson, family. Are you willing to go against the grain? The story of Abraham, family. Oh, and this lesson here, family, we were studying it for it, and I was like, man, let's try to shorten it. But this, I told Sister Abiyah, fam, I'm like, this is gonna be one of those lessons like Tobit. They got so much good stuff in it, you can't skip over it because you're gonna miss something important. So I was like, we just might have to do a part 2, family. So y'all just stick with us. This is gonna get deep. It's going to be an important lesson. And why we think this is important, family, is because, you know, when you hear about Abraham, you always hear, and we talk about it all the time too, right? Abraham, he left his father. He obeyed the voice of Yah. I think we was talking about it in the last few weeks. We were saying how by him obeying the voice of Yah, it was accounted righteous to him, right? So Abraham's story in the Bible, it kind of picks up when he was an adult, right? We don't see the backstory behind all the stuff that he did. You hear bits and pieces. But we're going to go deep into his story. We're going to go into the background of his story, family. And as I was studying this, I'm like, wow, now I know why he's the father of the faith. He went against the grain, family. And how many of us could do that? That's the question we have to ask ourselves. And family, as we read in this story, I want y'all to look at the parallels in the other stories in the scriptures, right? I want y'all to look at the parallels if you see something in yourself. From Abraham's story, does it relate to you? Because that's what we like to do here. We like to read the scriptures, right? And see how is it applicable for today. How does it apply to us today? And Abraham is very relatable to today, family. So we're going to cover a couple of things, family. Like I said, y'all just going to have to bear with us. We may go into a part 2. Well, we're going to have to go into a part 2. Because it's going to get real deep. But I want to ask y'all a couple of questions. How many of you all knew that there was prophecy around Abraham's birth? How many of you all knew that? How many of you knew that, Sister Abiyah didn't know this, I didn't know this, that he lived with Noah and Shem? You think of, well, Noah was before Abraham. So when Abraham came on the scene, Noah was dead. If you're just looking at the regular Bible, right?
Right.
But no, he actually went and lived with Noah and Shem, family.
Right.
So.
And they may have some who know, who
right,
probably read the book of Jasher.
Right, the book of Jasher. This is where we're pulling it from, family. And for those that don't have the book of Jasher, we're going to, the moderator's going to put the link in the description, in the chat. So y'all can follow along where y'all gonna see the online version of it. And if you got a Sefer family, it's in the Sefer also. The book of Jasher's in there. And many of you have the Sefer, so we can follow along that way. But it's gonna get deep, family. And so when we read in Abraham's story, there's really 3 main characters, 3 people that's in his story that's important to his story. It's his daddy. We all heard of his daddy, right? His daddy was an idolater. That's things that we've heard before. His daddy was Torah. And Nimrod. How many of y'all knew that Nimrod ruled when Abraham was, when he was younger, right? Nimrod was ruler of the earth at that time.
The scriptures don't teach that.
Right.
Don't talk,
right.
Talking about the actual book that we read out of, everybody in the world.
It only really talks about Nimrod in the Table of Nations. Then you don't really hear about him after that.
Right.
So it's Nimrod, Terah, and Abraham. So that's kind of the 3 main people that's in this story. And it's like I said, it's a lot of lessons in this story, family. You're gonna get a lot of gems from this. And again, this goes back to, and as I was studying this, I'm like, whoever saw Joshua to Jesus, right, when y'all saw the Table of Nations, you see a lot of this, how this comes into play. It lines up with Abraham's story. The beginning, the genesis of how things originated, right? Somebody commented the other day on our channel, they was like, I used to be bored reading about the lineages and all, and of different tribes. She said that didn't mean nothing to me, but she said now it all makes sense. So now that we're reading this, family, it's going to even go deeper into the lineage and the bloodlines and all of that. So it's going to get really, really, really deep, family. So pull out y'all scriptures and y'all follow along. And we're going to be reading from the book of Jasher. We're going to start at chapter 7, verse 19. And we're going to begin with the generations of Shem. And you want to start that for me?
It says, these are the generations of Shem. Shem beget, here we go, Arpachshad, and Arpachshad, oh my goodness, Arpachshad beget Shelah, and Shelah beget Eber.
Y'all remember Eber? You remember that word? You don't remember Eber? Eber is the original word for Hebrew.
Oh, right. Eber, wow.
Yeah.
And
so that's where we get Hebrew from, right?
Right, wow. And to Eber were born 2 children. The name of one was Peleg, for in his days the sons of men were divided, and in the later days the earth was divided. And the name of the second was Yoktan, meaning that in his day the lives of the sons of men were diminished and lessened.
And for Eber too, I think some places you see Eber or something like that. Eber, but that's the same word. So,
right. Yep. That's why I was, because that's the other word that I'm used to. Right. So it says, these are the sons of Yoktan. Amadad. I'm going to slaughter some of these names, y'all.
You know those names.
Right.
Butcher those names.
Right. It was harder to pronounce. Shalaf, Shazamavet, Yerak, Haduram, Ozel, Nikla, Abal, Abimael, Sheba, Sheba, Ophir, Havilah, and Jobab. All these are the sons of Yoktan.
Now, these are all the descendants of Shem, right? It's from his 2 sons, Yoktan, and then the next one is Peleg.
And Peleg, his brother, beget Yin, and Yin beget Sherug, and Sherug beget Nahar, and Nahar beget Terah.
Now we introducing Abraham's father, right?
And Terah was 38 years old, and he beget Haran and Nahar. And Cush, the son of Ham, the son of Noah, took a what?
Ham was the son of Noah. Remember Ham? Y'all remember, family? Ham, Shem, and Japheth. Those are the sons of Noah. Now it's going into...
right. Oh, my goodness, right. That's true. He had Shem, he had Ham, and Japheth. Right.
Yep.
Wow.
So now we're going into the birth of Nimrod. This is going to be important. Y'all pay attention to this, family.
Okay, so it says, and Cush, the son of Ham, the son of Noah, took a wife in those days in his old age, and she bare a son, and they called his name Nimrod, saying, at that time the sons of men began to rebel and transgress against Yah. And the child grew up, and his father loved him exceedingly, for he was the son of his old age. And the garments of skin which Yah made
Y'all listen
for
to
Adam
this, family.
and his wife, when they went out of the garden, were given to Cush. That's deep.
What? Y'all hear that? And this is important. It says the garments that was given to Adam and Eve.
The garments of skin.
Was given to Adam and Eve when they left out the garden. It was given to them, and now they said it was given to Cush. So this is important. There's going to be something about those garments of skin.
Wow. Deep. So it says, For after the death of Adam and his wife, the garments were given to Enoch, the son of Jared. And when Enoch was taken up to Yah, he gave them to Methuselah, his son. And at the death of Methuselah, Noah took them and brought them to the ark, and they were with him until he went out of the ark. And in their going out, Ham stole those garments from Noah, his father. Whoa.
Y'all hear that? It says Ham stole the garments that Noah took into the ark. So when it was coming out, remember it was Shem, Ham, and Japheth, and Noah, and their wives went into the ark, right? So when they was getting out, Ham said, I want those garments. He took them.
Wow. So it says, and wait, I'm reading 27. 27. Yep. So it says and in their going out, Ham stole those garments from Noah his father, and he took them and hid them from his brothers. And when Ham begat his firstborn Cush, he gave him the garments in secret. And they were with Cush many days. And Cush also concealed them from his sons and brothers. And when Cush had begotten Nimrod, he gave him those garments through his love for him. And Nimrod grew up, and when he was 20 years old, he put on those garments.
So you know what that reminds me of? Saying how Cush loved Nimrod, right? Because he begat him in his older age. That was his favorite son. Say he's pretty much like how Joseph. Remember when Joseph's daddy gave him the coat?
Oh, right.
So this is what's happening here. Cush gave Nimrod the garments of skin, right? And put it on him because that was his favorite son.
Wow. It says, and Nimrod became strong when he put on the garments. And Yah gave him might.
Y'all hear that?
And strength.
Wait up. Yah was with Nimrod? Says Yah gave Nimrod strength and might.
When it says, yeah, you know how we've been learning that Yah does all things, and it's always for his glory,
always
his esteem. My goodness. So it says, and Nimrod strengthened himself, and he rose up. That's why I'm at 31. And 31. And he rose up against his.
Hold on. You're right. Yeah. He was a mighty hunter.
Oh, okay, I didn't finish. Okay. So it says, and Nimrod became strong when he put on the garments, and Yah gave him might and strength. And he was a mighty hunter in the earth. Yea, he was a mighty hunter in the field, and he hunted the animals, and he built altars. Wow. And he offered upon them the animals before Yahuwah.
Wait a minute. So he was doing offerings
before
unto Yahuwah?
Wow.
Whoa. Nimrod knew about Yah?
Wow. Wow.
It goes back to what you was just saying. Everybody was Yah's servant.
Everybody. Whoa. And Nimrod strengthened himself, and he rose up from amongst his brethren, and he fought the battles of his brethren against all their enemies round about. And Yahuwah delivered all. Wow, Yahuwah was with Nimrod.
Nimrod,
the scriptures don't even talk about this. I'm talking about you again. You all, you know what scriptures I'm talking about. And it says, and
reminds us of when we read about Nebuchadnezzar, how Yah was delivering everybody into Nebuchadnezzar's hand, right?
Right.
Yah brought him up.
And it says, and Yahuwah delivered all of the enemies of his brethren in his hands. And Yah prospered. Wow. Yah prospered him from time to time in his battles, and he reigned upon the earth. Therefore it became current in those days, when a man ushered forth those that he had trained up for battle. He would say to them, like Elohim did to Nimrod, who was a mighty hunter in the earth, and who succeeded in battles that prevailed against his brethren, that he delivered them from the hands of their enemies. So may Yah strengthen us and deliver us this day.
Wow. So back in them days, it would be like, man, Yah delivered Nimrod's enemies into his hand. I want to be like Nimrod. I want to be like Nimrod. Nimrod winning all these battles. So this is what saying that people used to say.
Right. And it says, and when Nimrod was 40 years old, and at that time there was a war between his brethren and children of Japhet, so that they were in the power of their enemies. And Nimrod went forth at that time, and he assembled all of the sons of Cush in their families, among 460 men. And he hired also from some of his friends and acquaintances about 80 men. And he gave them their hire, and he went with them to battle. And when he was on the road, Nimrod strengthened the hearts of the people that went with him. And he said to them, do not fear, neither be alarmed, for all our enemies will be delivered into our hands, and you may do with them as you please. And all the men that went were about 500, and they fought against their enemies, and they destroyed them and subdued them. And Nimrod placed standing officers over them in their respective places. And he took some of their children as security. And they were all servants to Nimrod and to his brethren. And Nimrod and all the people that were with him turned homeward. And when Nimrod had joyfully returned from battle, after having conquered his enemies, all his brethren, together with those who knew him before, assembled to make him king over them. And they placed the regal crown upon his head.
Wow. So this is deep, family. So they like, man, Nimrod winning all these battles. We want to make him king over us. Let's appoint Nimrod king over all of us.
Wow.
That's deep, family.
Of course, with the help of Yah.
Right. But Yah was right. Yeah. It said Yah strengthened him.
Yep,
right.
Exactly.
So it seemed like he was in Yah's will, right? At some point in his life.
Some point.
Wow. Sounds like a lot of that's the pattern that we see a lot of the kings go through. At one point, they was in Yah's will.
And he come from Cush.
But remember, that was all come from him. But remember, that was all Noah's sons, right?
Right. Whoa, right.
That was all Noah's sons, so they all knew about Yah, right?
Oh my goodness.
But Yah chose a select group.
Oh my.
I wonder why he chose them.
Wow.
I'll read that. So we see he was with Nimrod. He was with Ham, Cush, Nimrod. He was with them at one point, right? But let's keep reading. Let's see what happened. We're at verse 40. We're in chapter 7. We're at verse 40. The book of Jasher, family. And if people are asking where we're reading from, we're reading from the book of Jasher. The moderator's going to put the link in the chat, family, so y'all can follow along with us. And it's also in the Sefer, the book of Jasher. He said, and he set over his subjects and people, princes, judges, and rulers, as is the custom amongst kings. So he putting people in different territories over the people, right? It's kind of what we have now, right? It's the United States, but each state got a governor.
Right.
Each city got a mayor. So it's the same thing. Nothing new under the sun, family. And he placed Terah, here comes Abraham's daddy, he placed Terah, the son of Nahor, the prince of his host, and he dignified him and elevated him above all princes. So Abraham's daddy got a job with Nimrod. They dignified him. They elevated him above all princes. So Abraham's daddy had a high position, family.
Wow.
He had a high position with Nimrod, family. We reading about the story of Abraham, right? We only hear 2 verses about the background of Abraham in the regular Bible. But we going deep today, family. It says, verse 5, and all nations and this is verse 42. It says, and while he was reigning according to his heart's desire, and after having conquered all his enemies around, he advised with his counselors to build a city for his palace. And they did so. They're talking about Nimrod, family. Said, and they found a large valley opposite to the east, and they built him a large and extensive city. And Nimrod called the name of that city that he built Shinar. For Yahuwah had vehemently shaken his enemies and destroyed them. And Nimrod dwelt in Shinar, and he reigned securely, and he fought with his enemies, and he subdued them. And he prospered in all his battles, and his kingdom became very great. Now, this is before the Tower of Babel, family. This is leading up to that, right? He said, and all nations and tongues heard of his fame, and they gathered themselves to him, and they bowed down to the earth, and they brought him offerings, and he became their master and king. And they all dwelt with him in the city at Shinar, and Nimrod reigned in the earth over all the sons of Noah. Wow. So now you reigned over his brothers.
Wow.
Yep. Over all the sons of Noah. Yep. So they was on top at one time.
Whoa.
This is important, family. Nimrod and them, they was on top at one time. He said, and they were all under his power and counsel. Verse 46. And all the earth was of, well, listen to this. And all the earth was of one tongue and words of union.
Wow.
So at one time, they was all under the same language.
Well, if you hear a loud noise in the background, our neighbors is mowing their grass.
Right.
So we don't know if you can hear it, but if you do hear it, that's why.
Right.
It's a mowing machine.
Speak up. Right.
Right.
Oh.
Wow, they literally right there.
Right behind us.
Right behind us.
I was at 46. And all the earth was of one tongue and words of union. But Nimrod did not go in the ways of Yahuwah. Wow.
Oh.
And he was more wicked than all the men that were before him, from the days of the flood until those days.
What?
Wow. So it's saying, even though Yah strengthened him, right? Something got in his heart. That pride. I did all this. Please, Yah. Even though Yah brought me through, helped me win all these battles.
That's the big cause for the fall of kings. Pride.
Right.
Women and pride. It's just the truth.
Right.
That's what we always reading about. Is always a woman
right.
or their pride that caused them to fall and turn against Yah.
Right.
Oh, they running the machine.
See that, huh? Where we at? Sons, but Nimrod did not go in the ways that. And he was more wicked than all the men that were before him from the days of the flood until those days. Verse 47. And he, listen to this, family, and he made gods of wood and stone, and he bowed down to them, and he rebelled against Yahuwah. So we have to remember, he knew about Yah because Noah was his daddy.
And we know Noah was a righteous man.
Yes. He was deemed righteous in Yah's eyes, right?
Wow. So now he like, I want to do my own thing.
I'm doing my own thing. I'm going to make these.
I'm king.
I'm going to make these gods of wood and stone. I'm going to bow down to them.
I can do my own thing.
Yes. It says,
I built this.
I did this.
Nebuchadnezzar.
He had that. Well, Nebuchadnezzar had the Nimrod seed, right? All of because Nimrod was before all of them.
Right.
He had that spirit. He had that spirit in him.
Yeah.
It says, and he taught all his subjects and the people of the earth his wicked ways. And Mardon, his son, was more wicked than his father. And everyone that heard of the acts of Mardon, the son of Nimrod, would say concerning him. Y'all listen to this, family. It says, from the wicked goeth forth wickedness.
Whoa.
That kind of sounds like father, like son. The apple don't fall far from the tree.
I know you all heard that saying.
Yes. They were saying that back then. They were saying that back then, family. It says, from the wicked goeth forth wickedness.
Wow.
Wow.
Whoa.
Daddy wicked. So you doing more wickedness than him. The apple don't fall from the
right.
tree.
Wow. As you can see, because he's a king, he was a leader, and so he started spewing all his wickedness out on everybody. And a lot of times, too, when people caught up in wickedness, they want people to join them.
Yes. Well, they say misery love company.
Misery love company.
Wickedness love company.
Yes, it is very true. So they want people to get on board. So they try to come in and kind of, I would say, infect you.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
With their wickedness.
Yep.
And that's what he was doing with the people.
Yep.
Because it seemed like before then, everything was all right. They was fearing, he was fearing y'all.
Exactly.
Y'all was helping him. Y'all gave him strength and power. And then now all of a sudden that pride set in and he like, I want to worship these guys. Well, he forgot about y'all.
Forgot about y'all. Quick like that.
And then start teaching everybody else to do the same thing.
Yep.
But that has to be in you.
Absolutely.
It has to be in you. I'm talking about to rebel and to just go all out like they did and stuff. Really?
Wow.
And y'all gonna see why I'm saying it has to be in you as we continue to read the story of Abraham.
Right. Right.
Yep. Got to be chosen too.
Got to be chosen. Yeah. Well, we're gonna get deep into that. That's deep. But when you were saying too, and how we were saying, how wickedness loves company, right? I think about these doctrines that the world is promoting, right? They always want somebody to join in with them. You want to live wickedly? Go do that on your own. You don't need nobody to join in with you. Do your thing.
Exactly.
Do your thing. Just do your thing. Why you want people to co-sign you, to approve you? Do your thing.
To make them feel better about what they're doing.
That's why Nimrod was teaching everybody to bow down to his gods and worship his gods.
It's not just me by myself. Now I could feel better with what I'm doing. It too. Right. So I got a whole bunch of people doing it with me.
Yes. So where we was at? Verse 49.
Yep. Oh, it says from for wickedness.
It's verse 49. It says, and Terah, back to Abraham's daddy, the son of Nahor, prince of Nimrod's host, was in those days very great in the sight of the king and his subjects. Wow. So Abraham's daddy was great in them days. Wow. He was great in Nimrod's kingdom. It says, and the king and princes loved him, and they elevated him very high. It says, and Terah took a wife, and her name was Amphelo, the daughter of Carnebu. And the wife of Terah conceived and bare him a son in those days. So we got to remember too, he had 2 sons already. Now his wife gave him another son. It says, Terah was 70 years old when he beget him. Wow. He was conceiving late back then.
What?
He was 70, family. Whoa. He was 70 when he conceived his last son.
Ooh, that's all I can see.
Right. Wow. It says, and Terah called the name of his son that was born to him Abram. Now we get Abram on the scene, family. He says, because the king had raised him in those days and dignified him above all his princes that were with them. So, family, we kind of have to lay that foundation to show Nimrod was ruling at that time, right? Abraham's daddy, Terah, he had a position in Nimrod's kingdom. He was high. They elevated him, right? That's deep. And I bet a lot of people didn't know that Nimrod was, he knew about Yah. Yah was with him.
Right. I didn't, to be honest.
That's deep. Yeah,
right,
I didn't
we didn't
either.
read the whole book of Joshua.
Right.
You know,
right.
to be honest.
So we're going to jump into the next chapter, family. And we're going to have a lot of nuggets in this one. You want to start for me?
And it says, and it was in the night that Abram was born, that all the servants of Terah and all the wise men of Nimrod and his conjurers came and ate and drank in the house of Terah. And they rejoiced with him on that night. And when all the wise men and conjurers went out from the house of Terah, they lifted up their eyes toward heaven that night to look at the stars. And they saw, and behold, one very large star came from the east and ran in the heavens. And he swallowed up the 4 stars from the 4 sides of the heavens. And all the wise men of the king and his conjurers were astonished at the sight, and the sages understood this matter, and they knew its import.
So they're like, man, what in the world are we seeing? They all at Terah's house. They step outside, they look in the sky, they see 1 star swallowing up 4 stars.
Wow.
They're like, this is, we seeing something incredible. This means something. We can't dismiss this. What this mean, family?
And they said to each other, this only betokens the child that has been born to Terah.
This is going back to the child. This is something about that child.
Wow.
This is about Abram.
So this child that has been born to Terah this night, who will grow up and be fruitful and multiply and possess all the earth. Sound like somebody chosen, huh?
Didn't y'all tell him that?
He and his children forever, and he and his seed will slay great kings and inherit their lands.
Whoa, that's going back to Genesis. Didn't y'all tell Abraham his descendants going to be as numerous as the stars?
Yeah. Right. And the wise men and conjurers went home that night. And in the morning, all these wise men and conjurers rose up early and assembled in an appointed house. And they spoke and said to each other, behold, the sight that we saw last night is hidden from the king. It has not been made known to him. And should this thing get known to the king in the later days, he will say to us, why have you concealed this matter from me? And then we shall all suffer debt. Therefore, now let us go and tell the king the sight which we saw, and the interpretation thereof, and we shall then remain clear.
They like, we gotta cover our tails. We gotta let the king know what we saw.
And they did so, and they all went to the king and bowed down to him to the ground. And they said, may the king live, may the king live. We heard that a son was born to Terah, the son Nahor, the prince of thy hosts, and we yesternight came to his house, and we ate and drank and rejoiced with him that night. And when thy servants went out of the house of Terah to go to a respective home to abide there for the night, we lifted up our eyes to heaven, and we saw a great star coming from the east, and the same star ran with great speed and swallowed up 4 great stars from the 4 sides of the heavens. And thy servants were astonished at the sight which we saw, and were greatly terrified, and we made our judgment upon the sight, and knew by our wisdom the proper interpretation thereof, that this thing applies to the child that was born to Terah.
Wow.
Who will grow up and multiply greatly and become powerful and kill all kings of the earth.
Wow.
And,
Pause right there. Pause right there. So what I'm hearing too, sound like we seen a parallel too with Yahushua, right? When Yahushua was born, remember how was it Herod? They went to tell him about him. He's like, this child.
They wanted to put him together.
Yes, we got to get rid of this child. So they telling the king, this child here, he gonna multiply. He gonna get rid of your kingdom. Wow. That's deep, family.
Very. So it says, and he will become powerful and kill all the kings of the earth and inherit all their lands. He and his seed forever.
Wow.
And now our Lord and King, behold, we have truly acquainted thee with what we have seen concerning this child. if it seemeth good to the king to give his father value for this child, we will slay him before he shall grow up and increase in the land. And his evil increase against us. And, well, that we and our children perish through his evil.
What verse here?
13.
13.
It says, and the king heard their words, and they seemed good in his sight. And he sent and called for Terah, and Terah came before the king. And the king said to Terah, I have been told that a son was yesternight born to thee, and after this manner was observed in the heavens at his birth.
Okay, I'm gonna pick it up. So the king called Terah. He like, what's going on? You gotta explain this to me. So he's like, y'all bring Terah here. It says, and the king said to Terah, I have been told that a son was yesternight born to thee, and after this manner was observed in the heavens at his birth. And now therefore give me the child, and that we may slay him before his evil springs up against us. Sound like Herod. We got to get rid of this child.
He really just wanted to keep control and power.
Sound like Pharaoh too, right? When he wanted to get rid of all the male children.
Right.
Yep. He's like, They're not coming to take over our kingdom. We got to get rid of these children.
Right. Take out the head and the rest gonna fall, right?
Gonna fall.
Y'all know that saying.
And after this manner was observed in the heavens and the earth. And verse 17. Verse 16. I'm gonna go back at 16, family. It says, and now therefore give me the child, that we may slay him before this evil springs up against us, and I will give thee for his value thy house full of silver and gold. So I'm gonna pay you for your son. I'm gonna pay you for your child. Just bring him to me so I could kill him.
Oh my goodness.
What Terah gonna do? It says, and Terah answered the king and said to him, my master and king, I have heard thy words, and thy servant shall do all that his king desireth. But my master and king, I will tell thee what happened to me yesternight. Terah like, but let me tell you this first. I'm gonna do what you said, but let me tell you something else first. He said, that I may see what advice the king will give his servant, and then I will answer the king upon what he has just spoken. And the king said, speak. And Terah said to the king, Ayon, son of Morad, came to me yesterday, saying, give unto me the great and beautiful horse that the king gave thee. Terah, you know that horse that the king gave you? Man, get that to me, man. I could do something with it. He said that, and I will give thee silver and gold and straw and provender for its value. And I said to him, wait till I see the king concerning your words. And behold, whatever the king said, that will I do. And now, my master and king, behold, I have made this thing known to thee, and the advice which my king will give unto his servant, that will I follow. So he's trying to kind of distract the king. He's trying to distract him. He's like, talk to me about this horse first.
Trying to be clever.
Right, trying to be clever. Like, let me get your mind off of that about my son. He said, give unto me the great, verse 22. And the king heard the words of Terah, and his anger was kindled, and he considered him in the light of a fool. And the king answered Terah and said to him, art thou so silly, ignorant, or deficient in understanding to do this thing? To give thy beautiful horse for silver and gold, or even for straw and provender? Art thou so short of silver and gold? Terah, you don't have money? You can't take care of that horse? That thou should do thus a thing? Because thou canst not obtain straw and provender to feed thy horse? And what is silver and gold to thee, or straw and provender, that thou shouldest give away that fine horse which I gave thee, like which there is none to be had on the whole earth? So, man, you want to give away that horse that I gave you? You out your mind, Terah? What you thinking? He said, and the king left off speaking, and Terah answered the king, saying, like unto this has the king spoken to his servant. I beseech thee, my master and king, what is this which thou didst say unto me, saying, give thy son, that we may slay him, and I will give thee silver and gold for his value. So Terah bringing the conversation back to the money. He said, what you said about my son, and you was going to give me some gold and silver? He said, what shall I do with silver and gold after the death of my son? Who shall inherit me? Surely then at my death the silver and gold will return to my king who gave it. And when the king heard the words of Terah and the parable which he had brought concerning the king, it grieved him greatly, and he was vexed at this thing, and his anger burned within him. So he was mad. And Terah saw the anger of the king was kindled against him, and he answered the king, saying, all that I have is in the king's power. Whatever the king desired to do to his servant, that let him do. Wow. Even my son, he is in the king's power, without value, in exchange. Wow. He and his two brothers that are older than he. Wow. So he's saying they all for you, king. So now it sounds like the daddy trying to save his tail, huh?
Right.
Trying to save his soul. You want to pick up for me?
Trying to save himself.
Right. Saving his tail.
And Terah, the king, saying, I beseech thee, my lord and king, to let thy servant speak a word before thee, and let the king hear the word of his servant. And Terah said, let my king give me 3 days, time till I consider this matter within myself, and consult with my family concerning the words of my king.
Wow.
And he pressed the king greatly to agree to this.
Wow. So he's like, king, give me some time. Give me 3 days so I can go talk to my family about this. Because you asking for a lot.
Wow. So it says, and the king hearkened to Terah, and he did so, and he gave him 3 days' time. And Terah went out from the king's presence, and he came home to his family and spoke to them all the words of the king. And the people were greatly afraid.
So pause right there. I kind of want us to go into this too, because we was talking about this earlier. Family, we see that there was a prophecy behind Abraham's life, right? It said that he was going to be great. It was told to the king. It was like, we can't let this happen. He's going to destroy us. Again, like what we said with Nimrod, with Herod, with Pharaoh, when they saw that this was going to happen to him, that Yah had his hand on their child, right? It's like, we can't let this stand. It sounds like what Satan do, right? Satan, like, he want to destroy that seed.
Right. Just think about that.
Y'all think about that, family.
And many times, a lot of us, when we were young and stuff, how Satan actually came to us when we were younger.
Yes.
And used our traumas, used our childhood, what is the word? Offenses, and the things that we dealt with coming up, that brought forth trauma in our lives. And he used it against us.
Yes,
so he was actually
destroy us.
Yes, he was actually monitoring us since young to destroy, because he could have seen our future. Because look at this.
Yes.
It's being talked about.
Yep.
Who went and tell Nimrod? Do y'all remember who went and tell Nimrod?
Those sorcerers.
Sorcerers. And sorcerers, who they feed off of, who they talk to, who they get this information from.
Familiar spirits.
Familiar spirits, demons, right? So these things were happening not just in those times. Remember, the scripture says there's nothing new under the sun.
Right.
So just imagine that this is what the adversary does for all people, especially if they see that Yah, there's a light on them, that Yah has chosen them.
Exactly.
And so when you look back, a lot of you look back and you see your life as, I've been through so much.
Right.
Why did I go through this? And not even understanding what was the reason why you went through so much. It was because the enemy had been watching you since young, because he seen that light and he seen where you were going. He seen the journey that Yah would bring you on. He knew that you were chosen. And so he was he started to attack you all the way he started to attack you while you were younger and all the way up to an adult. Many of us.
That's deep, family.
This is how he works.
That reminds me too of, we saw a lot of those when we see these testimonies and stuff, right? They'll say that these people, and we saw it with you know who I'm talking about, when they say they come to steal your destiny. They come to take your destiny. That's what Satan does, family. He comes to try to take destinies.
Right.
And this is what Nimrod was being used for, right? To take Abraham's destiny.
Yes, very true. Very true.
Think about that. And going back to what Sister Abigail was saying, that's what the enemy tries to do, family. And when you think about all the things that you went through in your life, like you was like, man, I could have died. Satan could have take me out.
How I'm still here.
In my sin, how I'm still here.
Some have stories too to tell that they've died, that they had a near-death experience.
Right.
And came out of that. But I mean, everything you've ever been through, all of the attacks.
Right.
All of the times when you like, man, I'm not even supposed to be here. Like, I was supposed to die. You know? Or something bad was supposed to happen to me. How in the world am I still here?
Yes.
That is deep. That is true. That he's a destiny stealer.
Yes.
But only if Yah allows.
He allows it.
If you are chosen, you are chosen. Yah says, I create vessels of honor and vessels of dishonor. So, this has exactly been going on since then, biblical times.
Right.
Destiny stealer.
Right. And that's what we're trying to get y'all to think about, family. Back to what you were saying. When we think back to ourselves and we're like, man, why am I going through this? Or
why did I go through that? Or
even if you're going through something now, you got to understand that you still here. Yah got you here for a purpose.
Yes.
He has plans for you, family. He has great things in store for you. You can't get stuck in what you're in right now.
Right.
You have to look
temporary.
Looking at the progress, looking at the future, and saying, man, y'all got to say, if I'm going through this, that means there must be something greater on the other side.
It has to be.
It has to be.
Think about it, you all. So many people are enjoying life. Well, I mean, what we would call enjoying life, because sin, we all used to be in it. Sin feels good, right? The enemy does create sin in a way to where it feels good to the person of the flesh when you're not walking in the spirit and you don't know Yah yet.
Right.
And so if you really think about it, this is how it goes. We all know that when we are of the world, sin, it feels good because Satan makes sin feel good.
Right.
But just think about it. Those people who are living of this world and in sin, they're not sacrificing. They're not practicing obedience. So, they are world, be free in the world.
Right.
And you got people that is actually saying, I'm coming out of that. I don't want to do that.
Right. I don't want no part of it.
I want to be obedient. I don't want no right. I want to be obedient to the voice of Yah. And you mean to tell me there won't be something good on the other side of that?
Think about that.
Come on. All of the patriarchs, everybody we've ever written about, when there was something good on the other side, they were being obedient to the voice of Yah.
Yes.
They were being obedient to the voice of Yah.
Deep, because as we reading this story, I'm thinking about it. Those that wasn't obedient to the voice of Yah, they was doing their own thing, just like what you were saying. They was in the world. I'm living world, be free.
Right.
I'm wishy-washy. I'm on this side. I'm on that side. I may follow Yah this time, but this look better over here. I'm going to go do that over there. Right.
Mixing them with idols and... some of them would worship Yah and then worship with an idol right there next. Worshiping him and, just worshiping him in spirit, and then there's an idol right there too. Well, I'm not going to say in spirit. On the altar.
Right.
On their altars. Because I don't know what spirit. That wasn't Yah's spirit operating in them to do that.
But that goes back to when we was talking about 1 foot in and 1 foot out, right? Not fully committing to Yah.
Right.
But you see the patriarchs, the ones that was committed, right? They was fully committed to Yah. They was fully obedient to him, right?
Right.
So we got to think about that, family. But I just thought that it was important for us to kind of expound on that, because Abraham had a calling on his life from the beginning. And the king and his sorcerer saw it, and it's like, we can't let this stand. We got to steal his destiny. We going to his daddy, matter of fact. Daddy, kill him. Let us kill him. Matter of fact, and look what he used. Going back to Balaam and Balak. I'm going to give you some money. Trying to tempt him with money. Will he sell his son out?
Huh?
We going to see. Where we at?
32.
32?
Who was reading for them? Was it you or me? I don't remember.
You could read and I'm going to start on the next chapter.
Okay. So it says, and it was in the third day that the king sent to Terah, saying, send me thy son for a price, as I spoke to thee. And shouldst thou not do this, I will send and slay all thou hast in thy house, so that thou shalt not even have a dog remaining.
Oh, if you don't send Abram, I'm going to kill everybody in the house, even the dogs. So you better bring them. Stop playing.
Oh my goodness.
Wow, they wanted to get rid of Abram, huh?
When those kings think they can surpass Yah's prophecies, right? When Yah gives a prophecy, it's going to be when it's coming from him. But when they think that they could, just like the enemy too.
Yep.
Just
they
like
think
these
they're more
evil
powerful
spirits.
than Yah.
Yes, think they're more powerful than Yah. Like this, they could surpass his prophecies, or they can surpass those who he have called.
Yes.
No.
Yes.
When Yah has his hands on you, can't nobody pluck them out of his hands, right? Yahuwah said that. Can't nobody pluck us out of his hands.
Right.
Not if Yah says so.
That reminds me of what you're saying. That reminds me of that scripture when it says, I knew you in your mother's womb.
Right.
What is that?
The one, I formed you before.
Yeah.
Well, I formed you in, let me see.
Let's see. Put it up for y'all right quick, family. It's Jeremiah 1:5. It says, before I formed thee in the belly, I knew thee. And before thou camest forth out of the womb, I sanctified thee.
Whoa!
Say, I sanctified thee.
Before thou camest forth out of the womb, I sanctified thee. You all, now you see, that's what I be saying with scripture. You can read scriptures all the time, but sometimes when you read it, it'll hit different from how it hit before when you read it. It's hitting me different.
Right.
I'm like, wait, hold up. I've been reading this. I didn't catch it like this. I ought to read this all over, you all. Just hear this. It says, before I formed thee in the belly, before you was even in your mama's belly.
Before.
I knew thee. He already knew us before we was even created in our mom's bellies.
Wow.
Before we even entered it. He said, and before thou camest forth out of the womb, before you was even conceived. Before you was even delivered. That's what I mean. Delivered. I sanctified thee.
Wow.
So that can only happen what? What did he say? He said before. Before you are born. Wow. He sanctified us before we were born. And I ordained thee a prophet unto the nations. What? This is how Yah works.
This is how he works, family.
This was already preordained. That's why I say a lot of times things are preordained.
Preordained from the foundations of the earth. Family.
Yes.
Yah already knows.
He knows.
And like what we were saying, family, it don't matter what the enemy try to do. It will not stop what Yah has ordained for us, right?
Right.
Now we know we can hinder that, right? If we open ourselves up, what we're always talking about, if we open doors to let the enemy come in and stray away from Yah, because Yah give us what? He gives everybody free will.
Free will.
He gives all of us free will. It's a choice.
Absolutely. But because he's all-knowing, he knows who's going to fall off and who's not going to fall off.
Yep.
He knows that too, but every single thing he does is for his glory. It's for his esteem. For his esteem. Because look what happened. Think about it. Look what happened with Nimrod. Nimrod was good on first. Nimrod was listening to Yah. He wasn't involved into idolatry. And you see, I didn't know he was actually at that place before he started idolatry. I always thought he was just wicked. Born
right.
Wicked. He was always wicked.
We all thought that, right?
Right. Many of us. But now we see, after reading this story, that no, he didn't start that way.
Nope. He knew of Yah.
Think about it. Although he didn't start that way, Yah already knew what was going to happen. He already knew what was going to happen. Yes, he already... Right.
What was in his heart,
What
family.
was in his heart? Because he steers the hearts of kings too,
Yep,
right?
Right. Ain't that the truth?
My.
Mm-hmm.
And look the prophecy that Abraham got.
On his life.
That's why he wanted to kill him.
Yeah, can't have this. He gonna kill me? He gonna get rid of my kingdom? Oh, no, I can't let that stand. We got to get rid of him. Terah, bring your son here so I could kill him. If you don't bring him here, I'm killing everybody in your house.
Wow. He said not even a dog is going to be remaining
even the dogs.
In here.
Wow.
Everybody.
Well, we at verse 33.
And Terah hastened.
So Terah was like, oh no, you going to kill all of us? I got to do something.
As the thing was urgent from the king. And he took a child from one of his servants, which his handmaid had born to him that day. Whoa. And Terah brought the child to the king and received value for him.
Y'all hear that, family? He took one of his handmaid's child and brought it to the king.
Wow.
So he pulled the switcheroo on him, right? But he still took the money. Whoa. It's like what we saying. When y'all's involved in it, ain't nothing nobody can do.
Yes, because look what it says.
Wow.
And Yah was with Terah in this matter.
Yah was with his daddy.
Oh my goodness.
Wow.
Whoa. That Nimrod might not cause Abram's death. And the king took the child from Terah, and with all his might dashed his head to the ground. Ooh.
Nimrod was wicked.
Wicked to the core.
Ooh. He took a child, and slammed their head to the ground. That's another type of evil, family.
Oh yeah. For he thought it had been Abram. And this was concealed from him from that day. And it was forgotten by the king, as it was the will of providence not to suffer Abram's death. Now think about it. Where's the people that was practicing divination? You know this was Yah.
What?
Because they could have said, oh, that's not even the real child.
Right. Yep.
So you know Yah was all in this. This is deep.
Right, because if we go back to the story, the sorcerers that seen the child, right? And they're the same sorcerers that went tell Nimrod.
Right.
But look how it happened. When Terah brought the child, none of them that saw the child was there. And Nimrod thought that was Abram. Nothing but Yah.
Right. And it said so that was concealed for a while. Where he didn't know. So it says, and Terah took Abram, his son, secretly, together with his mother and nurse, and he concealed them in a cave, and he brought them from their provisions monthly. And Yahuwah was with Abram in the cave, and he grew up. And Abram was in the cave 10 years. And the king and his princes, soothsayers, and still soothsayers and sages, thought that the king had killed Abram.
Wow. Y'all hear that, family?
So y'all didn't even give them that knowledge, didn't even give them that understanding or that wisdom. I'm talking about those who were into witchcraft.
Right. Know that it wasn't Abram.
It wasn't Abram. That just goes to show what we continue to keep saying and reading in the scriptures, that Yah is in control. Even when it comes to those witches and warlocks.
They ain't got no power.
No power.
None at all. They were so smart they would have knew that, right? Right. If they were so smart, they would have knew that wasn't Abram, right?
Yep. Whoa.
That is deep, fam. We talking about, are you willing to go against the grain? The story of Abraham, family. I hope that this is edifying to you all, family, because when we studied this, we like, man, this is deep. There's a lot of parallels. And we see here, too, Terah, he went against the grain, right? Yah used him to say, you're not killing your son.
Right. In that moment,
he said Yah was in the matter, right? Said Yahuwah was with Terah in this matter. Wow.
And he brought somebody else's child, right? That's what I'm saying, too, when people try to underestimate Yah and try to understand him based on their human understanding.
Right.
When really we can't even fathom, we can't even comprehend the fullness of Yah's ways.
Not at all.
We cannot, because look, that was justifiable.
Right.
He brought somebody, the handmaid's baby, that the king slammed on the ground and killed. And they say Yahweh still with him.
Right.
Because he was protecting
Abram.
And
the call he had on his life.
That Yah put on his life, right? We can't underestimate our Father when they go around and thinking he's a passive Almighty Father.
So that makes me think too, when you think about the people in our lives, right? You'd be like, man, you could have been in certain situations with somebody. Like, why did it happen to them? It didn't happen to me. Some people in our family, right? How they turn out like that? Not me. We got to think about that, family. That means Yah's hand is on our lives, right?
Or even how did we both go through this, but I came out
right,
or better, you know?
Right.
Not to say better, which would we say? I came out, when I say better, I'm talking about mentally, right?
Right.
Mentally or spiritually. How is it that I was able to walk away, you know, more from a, I don't know what you would call it.
I don't know if it's a traumatic event or something.
Right, but just walk away from it, and like you might look back and say, wow, they did not, they still stuck in that, or they turned to something like
exactly.
bad. So I'm gonna give an example. It can be like turning to substance abuse or just anything that causes people to go into strong rebellion, right? But then you notice you came out of that, and you looking back and you like, wow, how is it that y'all brought me out of this?
Right.
Well, because his hands was on your life, right?
Exactly. So I'm glad you brought that up, because that reminds me of our sister Carla, right? She kind of gave an example of what we're talking about. If y'all didn't see our sister Carla's testimony, go check it out, fam. It's very powerful.
Yes. All of the testimonies are powerful, but that was our most recent one. It was very, very powerful.
But she gave the example of how her friends was trying drugs, right? And she was like, she tried it, but she's like, this is not for me.
Right.
Said, and her friends went more harder on it, right? But she's like, She's like, this is demons. This is demonic.
Right.
I don't want no more part of this.
Right.
Right. So we got to think about that. Right.
Because we have some people too who have fell victim to that. But still, if you really think about it, though, how did you come out?
Yeah.
Not everybody come out. You all, we hear horror stories all the time.
People die in that. They die in it.
They die in it. Die in it. Not everybody. A lot of people do not come out of that.
Right.
So to come out, that is truly Yah. What a blessing.
Absolutely. All praises to Yahuwah, family.
Yes.
All praises. Hallelujah.
Yes, hallelujah. For his goodness and his mercy.
Yes.
For his merciful kindness is great.
So we're going to kind of close up, because like we said, family, this story is so deep. We're going to read a couple of more scriptures from chapter 9, and we're going to do part 2 next week. And it's going to get even more deeper, family. But let's kind of close with these scriptures. So we're in the book of Joshua, chapter 9. We're going to start at verse 1. And it says, Haran, the son of Terah, so this is Abraham's oldest brother, took a wife in those days. Haran was 39 years old when he took her. And the wife of Haran conceived and bare a son, and he called his name Lot. So now we're seeing Lot come on the scene. That was his brother's son. He said, and she conceived again and bare a daughter, and she called her name Milcah. And she again conceived and bare a daughter, and she called her name Sarah. Now we're seeing Sarah being introduced into the scene, right? Says Haran was 42 years old when he begat Sarah, and which was in the 10th year of the life of Abram. So they was 10 years older. He was 10 years older than her.
Okay.
So they're saying Abraham was 10 years old when Sarah was born. And that was his brother's daughter. So
he was 10 at this time?
He was 10 at the time when she was born. So when we know at that time, family, there was kind of, what would you say, keeping it in the family.
Right.
So they married relatives and stuff, right? So to keep the what was it?
It was the
heritage. I forgot.
Yeah, well, you would say heritage. Actually, oh my goodness, not that
word
word.
We looking for? Okay, we can't think of it.
It's literally
I know what we're talking about. Keeping it in the family,
when it goes down to the next generation.
The inheritance.
The inheritance. Oh my goodness.
Yep. Keeping the inheritance in the family, right? Yep. So that's why they did that back then, family.
Right.
It says verse 5. Wait up. Okay. Which was, wait up. I'm going to start at verse 4 again. It says, Haran was 42 years old when he begat Sarah, which was in the 10th year of the life of Abram. And in those days, Abram and his mother and nurse went out from the cave, as the king and his subjects had forgotten the affair of Abram. So him and his mom and them, they stayed in that cave for 10 years. Wow. Y'all do that, family? Abram lived in a cave from pretty much birth to 10 years old.
Wow.
Whoa. It says, and when Abram, again, the parallel with Yahuwah, right? When the king wanted to kill him, they brought him into Egypt. They had to flee, right? It says, and when Abram came out from the cave, he went to Noah and his son Shem, and he remained with them to learn the instructions of Yahuwah and his ways. And no man knew where Abram was, and Abram served Noah and Shem, his son, for a long time.
This is deep.
Y'all hear that, family?
This is deep.
And
when Abram came out of the cave, he went to Noah and his son Shem. Shem, you all?
Y'all heard Shem? The chosen ones, right?
Shem.
Wow.
And he remained with them to learn the instructions of Yahuwah and his ways. And no man knew where Abram was. And Abram served Noah and Shem, his son, for a long time.
You mean Abram was a servant?
Whoa.
They say he served them for a long time, family.
So they the one was teaching him.
They was teaching Abram about the instructions of Yahuwah.
Whoa.
So now we know, family, how Abraham knew about Yah.
Wow.
Because he went and lived with Noah. Because we know his daddy was what? An idolater. So he didn't learn it from his daddy.
Right. Wow.
He didn't learn it from his daddy.
Wow.
That's deep, family.
Wow.
Verse 6, it says, and Abram was in Noah's house 39 years, and Abram knew Yahuwah from 3 years old. From 3 years old. That sounds like teach the child in the way that they should go. And when they get old, they will not depart. From the word, it says, and he went in the ways of Yahuwah until the day of his death, as Noah and his son Shem had taught him. And all the sons of the earth in those days greatly transgressed against Yahuwah, and they rebelled against him, and they served other Elohims.
I have this right here. I'm going back and I'm thinking deep into this. Remember, it said that he went there to Noah's house to be taught by Noah and Shem at the age of what, 10?
Yep.
But notice too, now it's saying he knew Yahuwah from 3 years old.
Wow.
That is speaking volumes. That was before he was taught the instructions.
So it means Yah had his hand in his life.
Isn't that having Yah's spirit?
Yep. Yah had his spirit in him. Yep. The Ruach was in him.
Do y'all hear this?
Wow. That's deep.
Do y'all hear this?
So that goes back to when you were saying last week about, I don't need to read the word, read a physical book to know that this is wrong, right?
Right. To know not
the
to
Ruach, right,
kill somebody, not to hate somebody. Right. Because the
Ruach is going to convict us. So it's saying that Abram had the Ruach.
Yes. Since 3, he knew Yahuwah.
Wow.
That's deep.
Somebody was saying the other day, and this is going back to what we're saying. Somebody was saying, you don't have to teach your child how to sin, right? You don't have to teach them to lie when they're young. You don't have to teach them to steal. That's that wicked seed, right? How we always talk about, you got two.
Right. You got a righteous angel, and you got a good angel.
Right.
A wicked angel. Right.
Right. Before you even know the word, right?
Wow.
And you know right from wrong. That's deep, family.
Right.
Wow.
3 years old. He knew Yahuwah.
Wow. Where I'm at.
I guess we can do
Start
that.
at 6. It says, and Noah and his son Shem had taught him, and all the sons of the earth in those days greatly transgressed against Yahuwah, and they rebelled against him, and they served other gods. And they forgot Yahuwah, who created them in the earth. And the inhabitants of the earth made unto themselves at that time every man his god. Wow. Whoa. So they had all kind of idols. They said gods of wood and stone, which could neither speak, hear, nor deliver. And the sons of men served them as they became their gods. Whoa. Y'all hear that? They said every man, they was making men their gods. Like, sound like they was making statues out of them too, right?
Right.
Making them out of wood and stone. Don't that sound familiar to what's happening today?
Right. Right.
So that was a problem way back then in Abram's time. But some people think that's not a problem. I could do it. I could worship these statues. I could worship Mary. I could worship the Jesus on the cross. When this was completely, y'all was against that way back then. So what make it different now, family?
Wow.
It says, verse 7, and the king and all his servants and Terah with all his household were then the first of those that served gods of wood and stone. Wow. So that Abraham daddy was in the mix. He was with Nimrod and all his servants. Wow. And they all was worshiping idols. Wow.
Wow.
Y'all listen to this, family. Verse 8. It says, and Terah, Abraham's daddy, had 12 gods of large size, made of wood and stone, after the 12 months of the year. And he served each one monthly. And every month Terah would bring his meat offering and drink offering to his gods. Thus did Terah all the days. His daddy was worshiping a god every month. I had a god for each month.
Wow. My goodness.
Stooped in idolatry.
What?
Full of it. Knee deep. Not knee deep. He was head deep. Over his head.
What?
Every month.
Oh my goodness.
Every month he had an idol. Shoo. Wow.
Wow.
So this is what Abraham is coming up in, family. It says, and all that generation were wicked in the sight of Yahuwah. And they thus made every man his god, but they forsook Yahuwah, who had created them. Wow. What was that old saying? They worshiping the creation and not the creator, right?
Right.
Not the creator.
Right. Everything but the creator.
Everything but Yah. I gotta see something. That's what we always talk about. I gotta see something.
I gotta see
Yah,
it.
I can't see Yah. I need something that I could see.
That goes to show the faithlessness of the people back then. Their faith was just so... They had no faith.
Nope.
This is what Yahushua... This is the purpose of all of this, you all. That faith they keep talking about in the scriptures. As we continue to keep reading about them, we see that they didn't have faith.
Nope.
They had to see something physical to worship.
Yes. Because guess what? I got to be like everybody else.
Right.
Follow the crowd.
Follow the crowd. Nobody was doing nothing different. Only people we see in here that was doing something different, we talked about 3 so far. We know that was some of, because I know he going to eventually get with Sarah, right? But I'm just saying Noah, Shem, and then Abraham, right? But look how they talking like the majority of the people that were wicked and into idolatry.
Yes.
So it wasn't very many who was upright.
Absolutely. So that's why we're talking about, are you willing to go against the grain, family? This is what we was talking about, right? Noah went against the grain, right? Shem, Abraham, right? Because he saw what Nimrod was doing. He saw what his daddy was doing, right? worshiping these idols.
But you don't hear him partaking in it. You don't hear Abraham doing any of this.
Exactly.
The whole time of his upbringing, we're not reading that Abraham was doing the same thing. Abraham was... Now, we have to remember this too. 10-year-olds, to us in America, seems like, oh,
right.
That's a kid like mine. They're not too mature. But that's because this is how they condition us in society and condition the children to not be mature with all of these video games.
Right.
A truckload of cartoons. We're just saying, like, all of these things that
keep them. Yep.
Yes, like
keep them in that boy
immature,
mindset.
Right. Boy or girl, my little girl mindset, which prevents them from growing to the magnitude of how they grew in the scriptures. We seen that were 10-year-old kings. Didn't we read about a 7-year-old king?
7 or 8-year-old king, yep.
So we know that they were young.
Right.
They were doing things. We seen kings that was operating like grown-ups. That was actually, setting laws and rules. Young. They were very mature at a young age.
Right.
So I'm saying that to say Abraham knew what he was doing when he was being taught. When he went to Noah and Shem to get taught, he was mature then. So he could see all of that wickedness around him, but look where he stayed. Look where he was around them.
Right. Absolutely.
Getting taught.
Absolutely. But that kind of goes back to what we was talking about earlier too. When you think about it, us in this walk, right? We kind of going against the grain. Well, we are going against the grain. We're not kind of going against it. We are going against it because what's in this land? Full of paganism.
Full of idolatry. Oh my goodness.
And like what you were saying earlier, we trying to do it completely different, right?
Yes.
We saying we not participating in these holidays. We not worshiping these idols. We not bowing down to these statues.
We're not going to anything that has fought. Like we're not listening to any gospels or going to any churches that promotes falsehood. Right. I'm talking about the ones that promotes falsehood. Right. I'm not talking about anybody that has a congregation that's in the truth.
Right.
But we're not willing to sit underneath that and to be fed lies any longer now that Yah has opened up our minds and our hearts to understand his truth, the truth of his word, right?
Absolutely.
Wow. You're right.
Deep. Y'all see that's what we're saying, right? This is what we're saying, family. Looking at the parallels, looking at the similarities, what the patriarchs was going through, what we going through, right? But like you said, Yah knows who's going to stay in it.
Right.
And who's going to fall off.
Who's going to fall off. He knows.
Because when we're going to read these stories, we're going to see when the pressure come. When the persecution come. I don't know about this Yah stuff. Yah, really? You really want me to do this? Who's Yah? Like Nimrod, right?
And then start building up all those idols.
Right.
Trying to run away from Yah.
Run away from Yah. I'm going to go serve these other idols. Because this Yah stuff, I don't know about that.
With Yah, it's more accountability. This is why you have a lot of people that'll stray away from it and don't want to
because you can't fake this out, right?
You can't fake it out.
You can't fake it. You got to walk it.
Accountability that comes with this walk. And if there's no accountability in your walk, then are you truly walking in the spirit? Do you really have Yah's spirit?
Right.
Because a person with Yah's spirit, they're going to be open to accountability. They're going to hold themselves accountable. They'll allow other people to hold them accountable. I'm just saying, if nothing is holding you accountable, or you're not holding yourself accountable, then
guess what? You're an idol.
Right. Oh, right.
You're your own idol. Because guess what?
Very
Nobody
true.
can tell me nothing.
Right.
Nobody can correct me.
I'm
every
my
decision.
Own God.
Yep. Every decision I make is right. So that goes back to I don't need y'all no more, right?
Right.
Because I'm making the decision.
Very true.
Where we at?
Is it not 8 or 7 or 8? Let me see.
It was on 8.
Okay.
So we're going to jump to 9. It says, and all that generation were wicked in the sight of Yahuwah, and they thus made every man his God, but they forsook Yahuwah, who had created them. Verse 10. And there was not a man found in those days in the whole earth who knew Yahuwah, for they served each man his own God. Oh, they had their own God. Except Noah and his household.
Oh.
Now you were saying that before you even read that.
You see? Wow.
And all those who were under his counsel knew Yahuwah in those days.
Under his counsel.
So Noah was
You know what?
Abraham. Mm-hmm.
This right here shows why it's important to be under somebody.
Right.
Don't matter who you choose to be under. I'm not saying this. It has nothing to do with be under. Brother Rashawn, Sister Abiyah. No, you all. But this is important. Throughout scriptures, and we always talk about order. They always spoke of order. Exactly. They always spoke of leaders.
We see an order right here.
Leadership.
Mm-hmm.
Look at the greatest example. It said, and all those who were under his counsel.
Yep.
So that just goes to show the importance of leadership and being under somebody, being willing to be humble enough to say, you know what, I'm not going to be all loose all over the place. You know, not listening to nobody, feeling like I got this, I don't need nobody, and just all over the place. I'm willing to be able to say, you know what, I'm going to be under this person because this is Yah. I know that I know Yah is with them.
Exactly.
Because their fruits bear witness to them. And so I'm willing to be under them and to be humble at the same time. Exactly. Right? Because order is important. And if anybody is living a life, we know Yah. A lot of times say, all we need is Yah. Yeah, to a certain extent, you all.
To a certain extent. But why we see the patriarchs. They all had somebody, right? They was under some
place. He used people. What it says, I sent them saviors.
Right.
He sent saviors. He sent prophets.
Yep.
Right. He made Moses a god to Aaron.
Yep, Aaron.
To Aaron.
Yep.
So you all. I'm not saying nothing about we know God. So none of us know you all. But the point is, Yah sets people in place for a reason. Right. It's a lot of times to lead people to him. It's all about Yahuwah. And it's really, a lot of times too, he's going to judge the humility in our hearts. What's in our hearts.
Right.
Remember Korah?
Exactly.
He going to judge what's in your heart.
Like, guess what? We all righteous.
We all righteous.
That's not the attitude to have, family.
But Abraham went to learn from Noah.
And look what it said. All those who he counseled knew of Yahuwah. Wow. You mean he was getting instruction from Noah? And if you go back even further, go down the line, it was Enoch, right? Enoch was teaching his son Methuselah. When Enoch went into heaven, Methuselah became like the leader, right? Then he was teaching his son Lamech.
Wow. See how it was just going down?
It was just going down the line.
Down the line.
Always teaching each other Yah's ways.
Yah's ways, Whoa. This is deep.
Y'all think about that, family.
So that does affect where you go.
Yep.
Because you had those who were listening. You remember when Mary was like, what was that? With Martha and Mary?
Uh-huh.
Y'all remember that? And then it was like, what was that? I think it was Martha. Yep. When Yahushua said, Martha, Martha, Martha. It was like, you concerned about unnecessary things. You need to, look, Mary chose the good thing.
Right.
She chose to sit at my feet and listen to my instruction.
Exactly.
So her heart was obedience, was on obedience in learning about Yahuwah.
Yes.
She wasn't all over the place like her sister was. Martha was all over the place. And then she want to talk about,
like, slow down.
My sister don't want to help me. And he was like, no, you worried about the wrong thing. You should be worried about what your sister worried about.
Exactly.
Which is the instructions of my father, right?
Yes.
So that is important, whether you under somebody or you not, whoever that somebody is. It's important to all of our walks, you all.
Exactly.
To be listening to someone. I'm talking about not just listening to anybody. That's actually talking about the ways of Yah.
Exactly.
That's not feeding you no flesh stuff.
You have to be teaching you the ways of Yah.
Right.
Verse 11, it says, and Abraham, the son of Terah, was waxing great in those days in the house of Noah. So he was doing good. It says, and no man knew it, and Yahuwah was with him. Wow. It says, and Yahuwah gave Abram an understanding heart, and he knew all the works of that generation. Going back to that heart, huh? He knew all the works of that generation were vain, and that all their gods were vain and were of no avail.
Say, y'all gave him an understanding heart. Y'all hear that?
Wow.
Yeah.
So y'all showed him.
When we be thinking we doing something, if we have understanding, we got to praise Yahuwah.
What?
Praise his holy name. Esteem him. Because it's only him that can give us an understanding heart. Just like he did for Abraham. It ain't got nothing to do with us.
What?
Nothing. When I say nothing, zero. Understanding comes from Yah. And him alone.
Yes.
Through Yahushua HaMashiach.
Yes.
Hallelujah. It doesn't come from ourselves.
Not at all. That word waxing, it means increasing. So it's saying he was increasing great in those days in the house. Wow. Going back to when we were saying you under somebody, right? He's saying he kept increasing in knowledge. He kept increasing in understanding.
What it says in the house? I didn't.
He was waxing great in those days in the house.
In the house of Noah.
Yes.
You see? And no man knew it.
Nobody knew where he was.
What?
But he was getting that knowledge.
And Yahuwah was with him?
That whole time.
That do remind me of Yahushua, because
Right.
Yahushua was like learning to before he
Right,
received
before
the
he started
spirit of
his
Yah.
right.
Before Yah sent his Ruach HaKodesh to him when he got baptized, he was learning.
Yes. That's deep. Y'all think about that. So you see a lot of parallels in Abram's story and in a lot of the other patriarchs. We talked about Yahushua, right? Who else? Talked about Joseph. I mean, you see a lot of parallels, but it's going to get deep. We want to end right there, family, because it was like, if we keep going, this is going to be 3-4 hours. So it was like, we're going to stop here.
Sometimes some people be complaining about our messages being
too long. Right.
But sometimes you all look, is that powerful where we just have to keep going. We ain't saying this one is not powerful, but it would be.
It would be cramming it.
We don't want to cram anything.
Right. This one you got to soak in and just think about, man. Now I see why Abram was the patriarch of the faith, because of what he went through. And then his story going to get even deeper, family. So we're going to continue that story next week, family. We're going to do part 2 next week. And we just pray that this message was edifying, family. Pray that it was a blessing to you all.
Yes.
We're thankful, family, that you all came to fellowship with us. Hallelujah. Thank you to our moderators that put the scriptures in the chat, family. Right. Again, if you follow along with the link in the description in the chat, to look at that book of Jasher, and we're going to continue with part 2 next week. Right.
It's going to be the completion of it, but we all want you to just think about it. Actually think about what we discussed in the story that, everything we've read so far. How important it is, to stand firm.
Yes.
On your
against the grain.
Walk. I mean, stand firm in your walk, and when it comes to your faith, like you said, going against the grain.
Yes.
That is so important,
that's
especially
in our walk, family. Right.
Oh yeah.
Yes.
Oh yeah. Yes. It's going to require you to be firm. Right. This walk, it requires all of us to be firm and not wavering back and forth. Again, with both feet in.
Exactly.
Not 1 foot in and 1 foot out, but both feet in.
Yes.
It's a must in this walk.
Right.
Because if not, then really, you know what that goes to? I mean, what that leads to? What is that? Lukewarm believer.
Yep. Lukewarm, double-minded.
Yes.
Unstable.
Lukewarm is it's nothing but a double-minded believer. And it is true. So we definitely don't want to get to that, because he said he's going to spit the lukewarm out of his mouth.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly. So as we continue, family, we're going to see too where a lot of them, they didn't want to stand. They was lukewarm. It's like, I don't know. Persecution coming. The trials coming.
Right.
I don't know about this Yah stuff.
Right.
So it's going to get deep, family. So again, we pray that you all enjoy the rest of your Shabbat, family. Again, we enjoyed fellowshipping with you all. Hallelujah, family. And we pray that you all have a blessed rest of the week. And if we don't talk to you all during the week, we'll talk to you all next week, family. All right? Shalom, family.
Shalom. Love you all.
Love y'all.